Hey y'all, it's CityCast Philly host Trinae Nuri. If you're new here, welcome. This is CityCast Philly. It's the daily local podcast where we talk about all things Philly. It comes into your podcast feed every weekday by 6 a.m. Enjoy today's show. In less than 2 weeks, on May 20th, Philly Democrats will pick their candidate for district attorney. With no Republicans running, the winner of this election will determine our city's next prosecutor. Two-term incumbent Larry Krasner, who I talked to in last Wednesday's episode, faces Pat Dugan, a former judge from Northeast Philly. Dugan is on the show today to make the case for why he'd make Philadelphians feel safe in our city. It's Wednesday, May 7th. I'm Trinae Nuri, and we're talking politics. Pat Dugan, introduce yourself to our listeners. You have a really interesting story.
I sure do. I'm a native Philadelphian, born and bred, born in Fairmount, moved to Frankfurt when I was about 9 or 10 years old. My mom was basically a single mother with 5 children by then. And, she worked 2 jobs. We rented homes, apartments quite often, but wound up right near the Margaret Orthodox L stop. But prior to moving to Frankfurt, a story I like to tell to explain who I am as a man, as a person. When I was I was 6 or 7 years old, sitting on the steps in Fairmount on Parish Street, and it was the 1960s. All kinds of things going on. Dr. King was assassinated, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, and we had riots in the streets. So we're sitting on the steps, and a young black teenager is riding his bike as fast as he can past our house, and he's being chased by some local old heads. So older teenagers is chasing this kid. They catch him half a block down the street from us, and they pick up a board and they start to beat him. One of those big old yellow police barricade boards. My mom jumped off the step, runs down, gets between those old heads and this young kid, protects him, brings that kid to our steps, waits for the police to come so this kid could be taken home safely. So my mother taught me we have to get off this step to help people. And that's part of the reason why I've chosen the path in my life, whether it was going into the Army to be a paratrooper, serving overseas, and also being a judge, doing the things that I've done on the bench, as well as now stepping off the bench in order to try to make our city a lot safer than it is. So in essence, that's what I've been doing, getting off the step my entire life, including coming off the bench.
And you were 43 years old when you re-enlisted in the Army. Why did you do that?
So, yes, I was a infantry paratrooper during the 80s. I was stationed in with the 82nd Airborne. I was in a recon platoon, which is pretty high speed. I was stationed in South Korea along the DMZ. And I was stationed in Panama for 2 years with an airborne infantry unit. I used my veterans benefits when I came home to finish the last year of college and also to go to law school. 9/11 happened, and I had been, one of those high-speed soldiers in the 80s. And I just felt that I still had a lot of skills. They were second nature to me, even 14 years out. And as I was watching the events occur in Afghanistan and then Iraq, I was like, you know what, I can't sit on the sidelines anymore. So I got off the steps again. I was able to convince the Army to allow me to go back in as a reservist. And I wound up going to Iraq as a civil affairs soldier. Very proud of the service with the young men and women that I eventually served with, and lifelong friends, frankly, both Iraqis as well as American soldiers and Marines and whatnot that I bonded with.
Judge Dugan, you seem to have an uphill battle. You're facing an incumbent with a whole lot of name recognition and 7 years in this role. Crime rates, by most indicators, are low this year. So there may not be a lot of Philadelphians demanding change. Why do you see this as your opportunity here? Why do you want this job?
So I got to tell you that I can't say that it was I wanted the job. This was not an ambition of mine. I just feel somebody has to step up. We have to bring common sense back to the district attorney's office. And I understand what you're saying about the numbers that are down this year. And, big round of applause for that, for Mayor Parker, Commissioner Bethel, because they're the new equation. They're the new parts in this equation. Some of the forward thinking that they've brought into the job, I think, is a big part of why the numbers are down. If we're going to give credit for the numbers being down to the district attorney today, then somebody has to take responsibility for more than 3,200 murders in the city of Philadelphia since the current district attorney took office. Do you know that we've had more than 10,000 people shot in this city since Mr. Krasner took office? You also know that that is more killed in action in 20 years in Afghanistan. So we've had more Philadelphians murdered in this city in a little bit more than 7 years than we had killed in war in Afghanistan. So if we look at, those numbers over these years, if we look at the murder rate, if we look at illegal dumping has not been prosecuted in 8 years. That's crazy. A couple of weeks ago, Larry decided we're going to start prosecuting people who are dumping trash into our creeks again. Why weren't we doing this before? He started a new retail theft task force a couple weeks ago. Why wasn't that done 7.5 years ago when he instituted the policy that said you could take anything for $499 and below, and it was a freebie? That's his policy. And the retail theft went through the roof. We went from 7,200 retail thefts in 2017. And when he took over, and in 1 month after he took over, he changed that policy. And last year we had 24,000 retail thefts with a less than 2% arrest rate. Now that's arrest.
Just jumping in here to clarify those numbers, the Inquirer reported 7,760 retail thefts in 2017. And city data shows that there were 22,240 last year, with an arrest rate of about 7.1%.
I'm not talking about how many were charged. Very few retail thefts have been charged since Larry Krasner took office. Now that sounds okay. We're not going to prosecute these very minor crimes. Well, it's not minor to Wawa, who invested $100 million in Center City with 9 Wawas. All 9 Wawas are gone. Rite Aid, CVS, they have a foot and a half out the door. Look at their shelves. They're not sticking around. People see these Rite Aids and CVSs closing in their neighborhoods. People don't have pharmacies close to them anymore. Let's talk about mom and pop stores. They can't afford somebody to steal a bag of chips, let alone $499 worth of merchandise. Macy's, are you kidding me? Hundreds of retail thefts incidents, including one where the security guard was fatally stabbed. And he was fatally stabbed after the security guard stopped an individual for stealing something. When the police were called, nobody was arrested. You know why nobody was arrested? Because Krasner will not charge that person. So the guy was let go. The guy came back and stabbed that security guard to death. University of Pennsylvania Law School. Now, when we're talking left or right, law is definitely leans left. I mean, that's pretty known. So they did an independent study and they looked at all the murders and the policies of the current district attorney's office. And they concluded that Larry Krasner was responsible for an extra 74.9 murders a year. An extra 74.9 murders a year. If you multiply that by 7, we're over 525 murders. That the policies of the district attorney's office have led to all these extra deaths. So these numbers, they don't lie. And these numbers are outrageous over the last 7.5 years.
Just fact checking that study, it was cited by a Penn Law School paper, but actually conducted by a professor at the South Texas College of Law, Houston. It was found that policies of the DA's office from 2015 to 2019, including 3 years before Krasner was DA, led to an increase of 74.79 homicides.
We can do better, Philadelphia. We can walk chew gum at the same time. Hold people accountable. We also have all these second chance efforts, these second chance diversion programs that this person, Judge Pat Dugan, the leader in doing in the court system. I can go down a litany of the programs that I've been involved with, whether it was starting Veterans Court in 2010, holistic type of approach where each individual that would come in front of us, we would have a team assess them for their needs. Do they need help with a job? Do they need help with mental health treatment? Do they need substance abuse treatment, anger management? Do they need a mentor? And we would work together, and we got a recidivism rate less than 10%, meaning they didn't come back to court. They didn't come back with a new criminal case. So it worked. We did that in municipal court, in mental health court, drug treatment court, DUI treatment court, domestic violence. We had a court for prostitutes. We had a court for people who solicit prostitutes. All these things we were doing, and they were working tremendously. Most of them have gone to the wayside, meaning their numbers are way down or they don't exist anymore because of the policies coming out of the DA's office. We can hold people accountable, but we can still do restorative justice together. And that's what I want to do as the DA.
In a lot of ways, you sound like Krasner, who also opposes, mass incarceration, wants to beef up diversion programs to get people help and resources instead of a prison sentence. So how do voters distinguish between you and Krasner when it comes to ideology?
So he talks it. I've done it. I'm the real reformer. You can see what I've done. My courtroom that I actually have led in reform. Actually, we have a program called Alternative Misdemeanor Program that I was very proud to be a huge part of. I was actually the president judge for 5 years, but this program was in existence before I became the president judge, but I was one of the main judges who did it. And we would go out to the neighborhoods, to police districts, including in the heart of Kensington, and handle the cases that come out of places where there's a ton of drug addiction and, quote, petty crime, and try to work with the people who are committing these crimes along with the community. We had a nurse, we had a mental health specialist, we had community service, substance abuse, social workers. We had all kinds of people in the courtroom helping defendants get through these programs. I offered Larry Krasner, when I was the president judge, we were doing that 2 days a week in Kensington. I offered Larry 10 days a week, meaning let's amp it up, let's get more, and I'll give you 2 judges, 5 days a week in 2 separate courtrooms in Kensington to handle all those issues that were going on up there. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to cooperate. If it's not his idea of just no prosecution, then he doesn't want to be a part of it. And you could probably reach out to the mayor and the police commissioner. If you can read between the lines at their press conferences, Larry is not cooperating with the stuff that they're trying to do, including this wellness court up in Kensington, but doesn't appear to be going very well. And people in the know will tell you it's because Larry is not cooperating, doesn't want to be a partner in that type of court. I don't understand it because he talks like he's the most progressive. To me, he's just a non-prosecutor who does not want to prosecute anyone. I'm sorry. That's what the job entails. We can still do good things. Good people having bad days. Let's help them out. Let's get that young man a job. That's not what's happening. He says he's doing it, but he's not doing it.
Judge, I want to go back to the conversation about retail theft. Retail theft is down this year to date compared to last year at this time. Things are not going in the right direction.
Anytime the numbers are down, it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. But if you take the numbers that are down, I'm telling you, it was 7,200 in 2017. We tripled it. Sure, it was over 24,000 retail thefts. So the numbers can only go down. And the part of the reason why they're going down is because now the police officers are actually making arrests. That's the new policy from the mayor and the commissioner, where when a store calls up and says, hey, we got guys who are in the store stealing. Can you come help us? They come and now they arrest. Where for a couple of years, they stopped coming to the stores because when they would grab somebody who was accused of stealing from a store, Krasner would not prosecute. So the police, why are they going to answer those calls? So that's the vicious cycle. So even though the numbers are down, and congrats, but come on, can we get them down to the 7,000 or less than that? Hope we can. So I guess we can. No, you know what? I can't give him credit for the numbers being down because he has nothing to do with it.
We spoke to Krasner last week on CityCast Philly, and he told us that so far this year, we have the lowest number of homicides in 50 years. Why should we want to make a change when it comes to our head prosecutor if crime appears to be dropping so dramatically? I'm curious to know, what policies would you do differently?
So I guess one of the big policies that would be differently is I would actually prosecute. And I would prosecute folks the first time that they're caught with a gun. Because what happens is if you have a young person with a gun, and that first time, if we don't do super wraparound services for that person, and we just allow them to walk free of a gun case, which happens at a very high rate over the last 7 years, then those young people wind up putting bodies on those guns. By then, it's almost too late to help them. So we have, when they get caught with that gun that first time, we got to figure out a way to get them mentorships, accountability. What's going on in your life that you're running around with a gun? Is it because you're afraid? Is it because you're trying to act tough? Is it social media where you're keeping score on there? So we have to get them to them earlier. And the prosecutor can't just say, "Oh, don't worry about it, Bobby. Don't worry about it, Mary. We're just not, we don't want to incarcerate you. We don't want to give you a problem. So we're not going to do anything." And I'm not saying everybody needs to be incarcerated. We have to look at each individual. But if we give them 3 and 4 chances to have a gun, and it's proved, it's happened too many times. There was a guy that was gunned down on Girard Avenue walking his dog a few years ago, but he had 2 gun cases within a couple months prior to that. One was he had a possession of a gun. He got a complete walk on that. Then he had a carjacking where he put a gun to a guy's head, took his car. I think he was an Uber driver. And the guy got a really low bail. Second gun. Now, judges are the ones who determine what the bail is. Prosecutors and defense attorneys, they argue with the judge about it. But a prosecutor, if he doesn't like the bail a judge does, has 3 or 4 opportunities to appeal it. Nobody appealed that young man's bail. 2 weeks later, he went up and killed a guy walking his dog. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to prosecute the guy. You got to do it earlier so that we can save them from being murderers when they're these young kids whose mind are not fully developed. So it's just, we can do both at the same time. We can help people, but we all have to hold people accountable because it's still against the law to run around carrying guns in our city.
You often speak about how Philadelphians don't feel safer, but the numbers show that we are safer. Is it the district attorney's job to make sure Philly feels safer?
I think it's part of it. I really do. And frankly, going around the city, these are people telling me that they don't feel safe. One of the questions I ask people when I go to these community meetings and when I'm walking the street is, do you feel safer? And I ask them, do you let your children go to the playground by themselves? You let them go to the corner store. If you're not letting your kids go to the store or go to the playground, you're not safer. You're not freer. And it's across the board. No matter what neighborhood I'm in, they're telling me that. They're also telling me that as victims, they're not being communicated with. So, do they feel safer if somebody comes in and puts a gun to their head and get robbed, but then that person doesn't hear about the court date because of miscommunication or mismanagement? I'm not sure what's going on, but too many people tell me that they never hear about what happened to their case, including bus drivers. Bus drivers get assaulted. And I had a long list of bus drivers from the Transportation Workers Unit who told me that they have no idea what happened to their case from 2023 or 2024 because nobody from the DA's office told them. Frontline heroes, paramedics, same thing. They came to me and said, Judge, we want to support you because nobody's telling us about the case where my paramedics were assaulted. Nobody's telling us. They don't feel safe. So even though the numbers look like they're safe, I don't believe people feel safe sitting on their steps when we have all these folks getting shot still. I mean, numbers are down, but one is too many. So I do think the DA plays a part in how we feel out there, but they also have to know that the DA has the community's back, that they're going to be taken care of when they're assaulted and not forgotten. During COVID, when we had men and women stuck in jail, I was the president judge. I went into the prisons, opened up a COVID court so that those men could get a hearing much quicker. I went in there just with a mask. I sat at a desk and they piped in the testimony from witnesses and victims while I was in prison with a guard and with the defendant attorney. And I did that because I wanted to help those men and women not sit in jail without a hearing. So I'm all in as well for making sure people aren't sitting in jail unnecessarily.
More with Pat Dugan after the break. One of my favorite things about Philly is the beautiful artwork. Philly's art world goes beyond our colorful murals. Art Star is a curator representing working studio artists and crafters. They've got a retail shop in Old City and host art bazaars and markets throughout the year. Their next event is the Art Star Craft Bazaar on Mother's Day weekend at Cherry Street Pier. So on Saturday, May 10th and Sunday, May 11th from 11 to 5 p.m., check out more than 80 craft vendors selling handmade goods, gift ideas for mom, and Make and Takes by Project Joy Craft Nation in Philadelphia. Enjoy the Delaware River water views while you're eating food and sipping a drink for purchase. The first 75 people can get totes at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. How cool is that? And the CityCast Philly team will be there on Saturday. Come say hi and pick up some stickers. We can't wait to see you there. For more details on this event, go to artstarphilly.com. Filler Club is a private city club in the heart of Center City, designed as a third space for the modern city dweller, equal parts professional, social, and cultural hub. Located across from 30th Street Station, there's a boutique hotel with 14 thoughtfully designed rooms, perfect for members, friends, and family. And membership gets you access to dining, events, and a full fitness suite with an indoor pool, climbing wall, and spa services. Filler Club's work and innovation hub, ideal for entrepreneurs, remote workers, and teams of colleagues. And when you're thinking about work, there's everything from shared desks to private offices and boardrooms. Learn more about Filler Club becoming your third space, where work, community, and leisure intersect. Get more details at fillerclub.com/CityCast membership. Mother's Day is coming up, so to celebrate and honor her, gift her with something special, like an Aura digital picture frame. My mom lives in a different time zone, so when she comes to visit us in Philly, we take lots of pictures. I love the one where we're all squeezed on a couch watching Sunday Night Football. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, and it was featured in 495 gift guides last year. So the next time you need to call your mom, you can also send her a picture of your son at his lacrosse game right from your phone. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver mat frame. That's auraframes.com. Promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Judge, you told City and State PA that Krasner is, quote, the worst thing that has ever happened to Philadelphia. Why is that?
I think he's turned the criminal justice system on its head, which is what his goal was. And when, again, a progressive law school does a study, tells the world that there's been an extra 525 murders in the city of Philadelphia under his regime. Extra. He's responsible for an extra 525 murders. I think that's more than enough that he would classify as the worst politician or person to ever be in any type of power in the city of Philadelphia. Because, again, when somebody who's in the same ideological sphere as Larry Krasner says that, that says a lot. I mean, I kind of felt that based off of what I've seen. I've seen the attorneys, and again, there are some pretty good attorneys in the district attorney's office. I'm not doing a broad brush of everybody, but there are so many attorneys who come in our courts that are not prepared. They're not prepared because they're not trained. Not my words. I saw it, but it's the words of these district attorneys after they leave the office saying, all we had, the training was like a touchy-feely seminar as opposed to, here's how you put a case on, here's how you cross-examine a witness, here's how you put something into evidence. And they weren't being trained. One of them's talking about how would go into the bathroom and vomit. Another one talked about their peer who went in, stood on top of a toilet and shut the stall doors so nobody could find her. Court staff did find that attorney. They called an echo chamber in that office that no one's listening to them when they come back from court. These brand new attorneys, no mentorships. This is what they're telling us and what I've seen. So, when you're the person in charge of that office, you're not training the DAs. You're not communicating with the families of murder victims. Again, not my words, their words. All you got to do is Google that. Go look at Helen Urbinus's columns for the last 7 years. And you can see all these families who've been abandoned by the district attorney's office who don't know that the court date happened already for the person who murdered their child. And they didn't even know about it. They got to read about it in the paper. That to me, yeah, you've been elected by the citizens of Philadelphia. You have an obligation to the victims, to the city, and he has failed it.
Meanwhile, Krasner, in our interview with him last week, which is available in our podcast feeds, he dismissed you as a misdemeanor judge and said you have no experience with felony cases. Is that accurate?
So, as a Philadelphia Municipal Court judge, I handled felonies. I did these diversion courts, but I was in the felony homicide room. So we handled all the preliminary hearings of felonies. For the last, I did it for about 15 years. So almost every murder I touched, or at least half of them because of the way our schedule was. But I handled a lot of those preliminary hearings and murders. So in terms of who's prepared and who's not, Larry Krasner came from a law office where, frankly, he didn't supervise anybody at all in that office if it wasn't but a few people. I have led a court system. I was the president judge of municipal court, had three divisions, over 300 employees, 27 judges that worked with me. So I know how to lead. I know how to run an office. And frankly, I am not going to be in court prosecuting people. I am going to bring in competent supervisors and leaders to help me run that office. I am not somebody who thinks he's the smartest person in a room. I plan on bringing good people around me to help run that office. And he can call me lowly misdemeanor court all he wants. He has nothing else to say other than that. He was never a prosecutor at all. And look at how bad he has done. Anyone can do a better job than what he has done in the last 7.5 years. He talks a good game, but truly look at what he has done.
In our interviews, he also brought up the case of a Philadelphia police lieutenant, Jonathan Josie, who was charged with assault for hitting a woman at a Puerto Rican Day parade back in 2013. You didn't recuse yourself from the case, even though your wife was a police officer, and then you acquitted Josie. Could you explain your view of this case?
Yeah, I wish the Wish we had TV in the courtroom. I made the decision. Judges have to make tough decisions at times, and the recusal, that actually was just a headline in the paper. Any expert that looked at this, I did not have to recuse myself. Folks in the know knew my wife was a police officer, and frankly, I would have to. I couldn't be a judge if that was the standard because your wife is a police officer. Almost every case has a police officer involved in it. Um, the evidence that was presented to me that day, both sides, both the Commonwealth and the defense, basically presented evidence that Officer Josie was not guilty based off the evidence that was presented. Use of force. There was an expert, national expert, who testified who said that it didn't rise to the level of criminality. It was, and I said this in my decision, he should be fired or disciplined, but based off the evidence that was presented, and I had officers testify who said they were scared, people were throwing bottles at them, and then it's national expert plus 10 character witnesses for the defendant, Mr. Josie, came in. Character evidence alone is enough to find somebody not guilty because character evidence says he has a clean record. So based off of all that, yes, I found him not guilty. And it's just interesting. One case out of 17 years is what he keeps pointing at. I'm pointing at thousands and thousands of cases that he has blown. And oh, by the way, the Josie case, there was a guy by the name of Mondesire. Jerry Mondesire was the head of the NAACP at the time. And there's a quote contemporaneously in the Tribune about how Judge Dugan made the right decision based off the evidence that was presented. Along with, oh, by the way, the current sheriff of Philadelphia, Rochelle Bilal, who was a huge fan of Larry Krasner, but contemporaneously, she said the same thing, that Judge Dugan made the right call based off the use of excessive force. So I made the decision, and again, I wish everybody could have seen the evidence presented in the court, not just in the media.
Krasner has also called you a prop for Trump and a MAGA Republican. He says Republicans have signed your petitions to get you on the ballot, and Trump donors are also donating to you. In a recent fundraising email, he wrote, Dugan is running as a Democrat, but he hasn't earned the endorsement of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, only the support of the Philadelphia Republican Party chair. Worse yet, Dugan is funded by Trump donors. 8 of his top 10 contributors also contributed to Trump. And there's only one reason why Republicans know Dugan would be a willing accomplice to Trump. Reaction on that, Judge Dugan?
Larry has nothing else to run on except he wants to try to tie me in with Donald Trump. I am a Democrat, been a Democrat my entire life. And his polling shows that Donald Trump, the number one enemy for Democratic voters in the city of Philadelphia. I can't control who wants to support me, who doesn't want to support me. But I can tell you that he's talking about the Democratic Party, about the endorsement. I have more wards, Democratic wards, that have endorsed me than have endorsed Larry Krasner. I have 35 right now, and he has something in the 20s. So Democrats are coming to Pat Dugan. Unions are coming to Pat Dugan. Larry wants to, he was name calling me in the beginning. He called me Nixonian. He called me a Trumper. He called me a Nazi one night. All he can do is call people names. I am a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. Look at my commercials. I've come out very publicly about my feelings about what's coming out of the White House. But as I try to explain to Larry, it's Dugan versus Krasner. He can try to paint me all that he wants to. It's just not true. I'm sorry, Larry. Yeah, I'm one of those guys who actually served in the military, and I'm very proud of my service. I love my country. I am Philadelphian first. That's what I am first, a Philadelphian, and I want to make this city safer.
And as we wrap up, can you explain your reasons why you backed out of the debate hosted by Committee of 70, WHYY News, and the Philadelphia Bar Association? It's been sort of a debate about the debates.
That's kind of interesting how that's framed right now, because I agreed to every single debate from day one. Larry's the one who started putting, shall we say, he had specific demands from the folks who were doing these debates. CBS 3, we had a debate scheduled at the American Revolutionary Museum. And Larry backed out of it because of one of the journalists. And the journalist was one of the people who did a story on Larry seeking the endorsement of a Democratic ward leader who was a convicted pedophile. The only person who would know that this guy was a pedophile was the prosecutor of Philadelphia, yet he sought his endorsement. So Ernest wrote the story. Larry said, I am not going to that debate. Instead of asking for somebody other than Ernest being one of the moderators, Larry backed out of the debate and he said, I'm only going to do WHYY. You know why he was doing WHYY? Because it wasn't going to be televised. If he was only going to do one, we wanted a televised debate. So it's interesting how it's framed that I backed out. Channel 29 was willing to do one. ABC was willing to do one. Larry won't do the debate. In fact, Larry Platt and the Citizens magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they had a job interview. I showed up. Larry didn't. There's the emails of all these wards and community groups who've invited Larry and me to have a forum. Larry stopped coming to the forums saying, no, I'm not coming to them. So now that's been twisted. I'm willing to do them all. And for them, got good spin. He's been in the public relations lying world for the last 7.5 years.
So you're saying I'm not really quite sure. So why did you not go to the WHYY one?
Because he was making demands on all these other ones. And when we spoke with the black journalists and backing them on the CBS debate, we had conversations and it just didn't seem fair that Larry Krasner is going to be able to say that I don't want this black journalist doing it, but I'm going to go to WHYY where my supporters are. And oh, by the way, it's not televised. So why should we allow Larry Krasner to dictate all these things? So frankly, I stood in solidarity with the black journalists and Ernest for that matter.
And lastly, before I know I said this was the last question, but one more.
It keep coming.
Thoughts on some of the Philadelphia Eagles going to the White House recently and others skipping the event?
Kind of distressing that politics has wiped away a great moment. It's amazing that I believe it was at least 32 players did not go. So my thoughts are, I know that I couldn't have went. I certainly understand that because of the rhetoric that's coming out of that office. So, and I'm a diehard Eagles fan. I just hate that now on social media, the stuff's going back and forth. And, now people are barking at Saquon Barkley and whatnot. It's just back and forth. And I just don't like how that even our sports are going to be tainted by the divisiveness in politics. So I certainly understand while folks didn't go. So it's a sad day in our country that we have such division over something, it's great for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, but to now have it where it appears there's going to be a political division. And I hope it doesn't break up the team too much in the locker room because I certainly understand those who didn't show up.
Was there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't get to?
Yes, I'm a proud pop, 13 grandchildren. My wife and I, we're blessed with 6 children. And my family, for those of you who know what I look like, I look like that old paratrooper, however you want to classify what a book looks like. But my family is as diverse as they come. It looks like the United Nations. And all I want to do is make this city safer for my grandchildren and your family. So please, May 20th.
Judge Pat Dugan, thank you so much for your time today on CityCast Philly.
Yes, and please, everybody, make sure you go vote on May 20th. Get that mail-in ballot, but please vote May 20th, and thank you.
Make sure to tune in to our episode from last Wednesday, April 30th, when I talked to District Attorney Larry Krasner about his record and his thoughts on Pat Dugan. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think about the DA's race and go vote on May 20th. Share this episode in the group chat with your friends if you're talking about voting, Trump, or crime in Philly. And sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, with more news about what Philly's talking about. We're here every Wednesday talking politics, and we'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the city. Bye.